during FemLink Pacific's second National Women's Human Security First consultation, ahead of a production of the second series of Radio with Pictures for 2016, women in all their diversities from rural communities and civil society discussed preparation, protection, human security, access to information, access to decision-making spaces and participation, to define what it is they want to see the humanitarian system be in general, and also how that informs development as we move back into things as they were after TC Winston. So here's what the women had to say.
Wailoa is a flood-prone area, so everybody is prepared every time during natural disaster. So we all were prepared, collecting our waters, putting our belongings to the upper ground, and all our kettles and food.
Because I was at home alone. At home, personally for me, it was really hard because I was the only adult at home, and I had a little daughter to look after, and also my little brother and my niece. So I had to prepare myself, put up hurricane shutters. It was more like for security. It was important.
For me, as a woman with a disability, a person that confined on a wheelchair, what really came up to my mind is that my preparedness is that where will I go with my family? And in the province of Serua, we have 2 persons with disability that stays around that side, and we kept on calling each other that there is a cyclone coming. So for that, I'm so grateful with my family that they really prepared that well. When I came home and everything was up, they prepared the candles and especially the water. So for me, I looked at how they really want us to be saved in the house.
As of for protection, I need to prepare myself and my family well in terms of putting the shutters up at home and buying candles, matches if in case it is blackout, and also to move stuffs inside the house so that there is no damage while there is a cyclone, and also water bottle to be filled and a first aid to be kept as well before Cyclone Winston.
There should be a protection plan given to children in schools so that they are able to come and also share with the mothers at home, because the mothers at home are left out and they are the first responders. And also for the community at large, the evacuation centers should be more friendly towards gender, and they should have security, both male and females. And also, before you evacuate people into the centers, as the alerts are coming, as we know that the cyclone is supposed to hit our country, those evacuation centers should be facilitated with the necessary items before people get in.
I collected all our needy things, water, food, clothes, medications, and checked on my families and relatives. After all things I've done, then I was a little bit relaxed.
Preparedness is, for me, putting shutters around, prepare for the clean waters, food, at least for 1 week, and batteries, small transistor radio. But now there is a Women's Weather Watch where we have a clear weather report, as from Sharon and Fanny. And I was prepared at that time.
I have learned from my forefathers. Protection means I have to prepare myself. I learned that before a hurricane comes, they will know. Birds flying inland, beehives, hornets, they have their hives under the trees, not on top of the trees. So that will tell us that something is coming, like hurricane and all those disasters. So we prepare ourselves.
Actually, the protection means how we prepare for our cyclone.
So the first thing I hear on the radio that the cyclone is coming. So I get prepared with my consulting members. I call them and told them, please give the message to all the community people how that hurricane is coming. We don't know how large it is.
And Gawe is a very big village which has a population of about 2,000 people that live there, and it's a flood-prone area. So that was a concern in terms of relaying the information down. We had to call our league members down and inform them that the cyclone was coming.
First of all, as a Lautoka market vendors, at that same day when the hurricane warning was coming, us gang, we are not aware of the hurricane warning. Because in Lautoka it was a good weather, we are doing selling as normal. When we were at the market, I received the information from my daughter at home. And I informed all my market vendors that the hurricane is coming, but they don't bother because of the weather. There was no sign, so there was no feedback from the town council. Even the policemen, they were near to our Lautoka market. They never give any information regarding to the cyclone that is coming. So the information for us, we never receive any good communication from our town council as well. So we just make our own self and prepared for ourselves.
Before Cyclone Winston, we couldn't receive any right information because of we don't have any radio station that could catch in the Wele Butikina, especially in Nambadi, Jerusalem, Nandamole, Urata, and goes on to right to Kumbulau. We couldn't get any information unless we have the Sky. The only people who have Sky disc, they couldn't have this kind of information.
Some of the vendors are very less educated there. We have to pass the accurate information to the uneducated vendors to put all the belongings on the top so that the hurricane is coming. We have to be prepared.
Information has to be accurate. You have to let everyone know what is coming. You have to let them know about how dangerous it can be. You have to be really serious when you're giving away information as such. And on the day, I remember all I could say to everyone was expect the worst, expect the worst, expect the worst.
As we are living in a very low-lying area, and we usually suffered from very quick flood, and our biggest worry is the weather. So we need to have the right, accurate weather bulletin, so I can be able to relay such messages to the women in my community, to the neighbors, so I would be able to mobilize them and help them in preparing for the coming of the flood.
But systems and structures and processes at national level must change to accommodate, to take us in. That's why we need to claim our space. We must, we've already shown that we must claim our space and demand that we are included at the decision-making table in terms of enhancing and strengthening women's groups, women's movements in terms of humanitarian response. Thank you.
We need more young women to participate with us so that when they are old enough, they could experience and knowledge to voice out their issues and what we need to support and strengthen the power and role of women, especially to change the mindset and attitude of people in a way that the people should see and understand that women are actually good decision makers and that are to be known as the first response.
We should hold monthly network meetings, and that is done every third Wednesdays of every month. And also through consultations and awareness programs to be created so that we can invite and encourage more young women to participate and take part into this type of programs so that they can also be aware of what's coming up and when and what for them to do in times of disasters like this.
The commitment of women is already there within the community, within the society. What maybe needs to happen is to strengthen this commitment, and in doing that, one way would be is to legislate 30-70 commitment. That, I believe, sets the platform and sets the law that will enable the participation of women in all spaces of decision making. And not only that, I think what works best for a women movement is collaboration, and in collaboration we share stories, and it is these stories, this experience that gives us the knowledge that enables other people to do things the way it was done by others.
The women's organizations or women have to mobilize themselves. They must be organized, and they must work with a collective voice. They must share common priority based on their common experiences. Only then it will be based on that their response to the question you have just raised. Because leadership is something that is effected if people have the necessary knowledge, have the information, they have the skills, and they have the support of people, and they have people who listen to them.
I agree that a lot of networking is needed, and a lot of consultations like this is needed to empower women. I know a lot of women are doing so much out there in our own communities. We've done it, and I've done it too.
After the disaster happened, electricity was not there, so it was dark at night. In the morning we have to wake up and cook the food, so it's very hard for us women to cook food at that dark time.
First of all, I have to tie my house with the thick ropes so that the roof does not fly away, because if it does fly away, then all our stuffs will be wet, our beddings and groceries.
It was devastating to see that the communities, the women and children, ran to evacuation center for safety. But then at the end of the day, those were the first buildings that had their roofs flown out during the TC Winston. And listening to the stories of women in my area and in Coronum, one of the rural areas in farming areas in Ba, they had to hide women and children under the desk when they ran to, they tried getting shelter in the evacuation center, concrete building, thinking that it was secure enough for the safety of their lives. But then they did not realize those were the first buildings. It is devastating to hear the stories.
We have to look after our kids, where they are going. Like a story we had our next village that the next day, one of the boy, 10 years old boy, he was swimming. He was swimming and he got drowned. So the families, the parents, they should take good care of their children. That because some of the people they just want to go around and watch the fun, what has happened. So that they made a mistake. They should look after their kids.
Thank you, Losana. To me, like after the cyclone, it meant no shelter, no water, and no electricity. For your information, like in Rekireki, we still do not have electricity in certain areas. Like mine, I haven't received the electricity till now, and they are telling us that it may be by August that we'll be receiving our electricity. And there wasn't water supply for one whole week in my community. Now, and then it also means how fast we can bounce back after any disaster.
It was a very traumatic event. And being a mental health advocate, I needed to look at myself first. Was I capable enough to go out and help other people? Was the outside surroundings safe enough? And then when I was okay, I had to look at the safety and protection of my personal family and my professional family, which is my family at home and then my youth champs family, because I needed to know that they were okay in order to mobilize our young people to start moving out into the community.
Protection instincts was on a high, especially for me, being a single parent. I always had to
look for and care for the safety of my children, and I had to be alert in trying to adapt to the things that were available, food and water, just to help us survive post-Winston.
We had to follow up with our members, how were they doing, whether they were coping, whether they're still alive, things like that, or whether they, further stigmatized and chased away from evacuation centers, particularly if evacuation center is classed into sex, male and female, and what do you, how do you deal with a transgender woman who wouldn't be comfortable living with a bunch of men, and her security is then further, compromised. So that's often the things that we have to think about when we talk about post-Winston protection, and it's critical as well before and after.
Since I'm having the only source of drinking water at my place, that's the water tank that was provided by the government, and I'm trying to make sure that all the households are collect the amount of water that will cater for them for the time that we're going to be at the evacuation center. So they all came, they collecting water, with some with 5 gallons, some with 4 gallons. We all collecting drinking water from my place, and we're taking it up to the evacuation center where we are staying. So that's what one of my main focus on the preparation that my community people are doing.
As you know, protection in my village in Kamba is collecting water. What is it? Storing water and try to find the way that I can collect water. As you all know that Kamba, we are facing a big problem about water.
Before the cyclone, we've been receiving drinking water from the water cards that has been provided by the Water Authority. But after the cyclone, there's no water card coming to our community, and we are going back to the same procedure that we've been doing for 3 years back. That's like we getting the water or drinking water from the creek, and early in the morning, like 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, we have to go collect the water first before we have a bath and washing on the same creek.
We had a community hall, but the community hall wasn't enough to cater for the whole village. And we're going through lack of food, which we share food with each other in the family, in the community. So we plant food that can harvest in 3 months. We going through lack of water because water was contaminated because of the hurricane, and we go without medicals. Like Panadols and all those, because after the hurricane we got eye disease, lots of diarrhea going through our community.
Even though we boil the water before we drink it, but still we got those kind of sickness. And I've been contacting the nurse that looking after our area. So I called her, I contacted her, and I ask her for some medication if she can bring to us to help the victims in my community. So she brought it, and the problem is she brought only a few. So I think there's about 20 victims from my community that were having this some with most of them are having diarrheas, most are children, and also some women, they're having skin diseases, which they don't have before. And since the nurse didn't give us enough medications and creams for those kind of sickness, so I went right to the hospital, our district hospital in Nandi. I asked from them, but good, they give us some. And those are some of the things that we do, women in my community.
We love to run more trainings on mental health, and also run a lot of awareness and sensitize citizens on mental health. And also because of limited resources and funding, at the moment it is a barrier to this. But then if in the future we have fundings coming in, then we have no problems in running trainings and awareness to involve women and girls in issues like this.
Because our village is more than 20 kilometers away from the main center where the health center is. We have only one truck transporting the village members if they need medical assistance or in times of emergency cases. Even the road is not good, in very poor condition, and we have to take 1 hour travel, especially the young mothers with children carrying their babies to go and have a clinic. And most of the time the truck is breakdown, where they have to walk. The girls and the women, even the old people, have to walk maybe 10 or 8 kilometers to their home.
For me as a young mother, my protection is based on our health center. We have qualified staff, but there's not enough equipment. For example, for pregnant mothers, for deep injuries that come in, and a scan and a labor ward, so that pregnant mothers don't have to travel 140 kilometers to Lambasa town. It is not good and healthy for the baby.
As a market vendors, like protection means when after the hurricane, as mothers, we have to look for the food on the table for our family and even for the financial for our kids to go to school. As a market vendor, we face a problem like for buying all our produce from the farmers. As a middleman, the prices are very high. So we had no option. We have to buy it and make and sell it, make a profit, make a living, and also you have to pay for your stall fees in the market. If you're not paying, you are losing. You're losing something that is for your daily life. You're doing selling in the market, you also make financial for your family. That's the problem we face, and we, at the moment still, after the cyclone, we're still facing that problem till today.
We will experience very heavy rain for about 2 days. Most of the places were flooded, especially root crops in our gardens, vegetables. They were all damaged.
Before, we used to buy a bag of cassava for $45 to $60. But after Winston, we have to buy from $80 to $100. And for me, like I'm selling virgin oil, coconut, honey, and vui. All those, we don't have it because of TC Winston.
The women were concerned about a noted rise in unemployment. We experienced it. It contributes to financial problem. These teenage young mothers are the ones who are selling in the market for the income for the family. And most of the time, they struggle to meet their needs.
After this natural disaster, our food source was damaged. And we as women find it very hard to put a balanced meal on the table for our children, young mothers, and pregnant mothers. And this affects their health. And for pregnant mothers, it will also affect their babies. And as well as I've said already, our health center is not that well equipped. So if they get sick, and it's not treatable in our health center, then we have to send them down to Lambasa Hospital, and it is very expensive for the truck fare and for them staying there for the expenses.
So before the cyclone, and I was more concerned about my community's protection, because in my community there's a wooden bridge which is getting rotten day by day, and it's people are having very difficulties in walking. Just like there are mostly farmers to the other side of the bridge, and they can't go that side. So for me it was my concern of protection. So just like when I say that it is within my community, so I have been talking a lot about this with the people who are just living beside that bridge, and that's my concern.
Just tried to find out all my neighbors and the people in my community. I just took a walk a few houses and found out that they were safe. And then I called my tenants in Lotoka to find out how they were. Yeah, and later on we went to Reki to distribute stuff through our clubs, whatever we could, food and clothing and all, to see that they are protected as well.
So as soon as I got the alert notice from my DO that the cyclone is about to come and we have to prepare, then I had to call all my community members and my consultative members to alert all the residents, prepare themselves, secure their house, their cattle, their livestock and poultry, whatever they had in their farms, and come to safe places, select for an evacuation center, and alert them that they should be prepared.
To my community, I have to get another next door old man to stay with me because his house was gone. So I have to get him to my house, and I have to look for him again. I have to stay with him to wash the clothes and everything. I have to put my family aside. I have to look for this old man first because he doesn't have anybody beside him.
And we were moving and seeing if those people, needy people who need more food, water, or women's and girls need sanitary pads, toilet paper. So we were looking and like we were giving touch with them and helping them, supporting them with my advisory counselor.
Youth Champs of Mental Health have young girls and young men who are trained in psychological first aid. So we get them on standby, ready to administer psychosocial first aid post-cyclones or natural disasters. But apart from that, I try to call my family and friends and my network and try and warn them of incoming disasters or whatever warnings we get on in the media.
We distributed food, cooked food, and bottled water, and to all the areas from Bath to Reki later on the same week. We distributed groceries and generators to our schools where electricity was not there, and then right from like other schools also we provided food, groceries mainly, to the school management when the school just a week later the school started, so they managed to cook the food for the children.
And then when I went into the community, what I found was that it was mostly the girls and women who were trying to salvage whatever they could from the damaged houses. And then most of them had lost their kitchens, so most of the things that they keep in the kitchen was gone. And most of them were outside trying to light fire to cook something for their family members. And then others were staying with their relatives or neighbors.
So there's also a need to be able to recognize the particular role that women contribute in terms of humanitarian disaster, not just identifying their role and recognizing it, but it's most importantly recognizing who are the women, so that we are able to provide support in terms of upskilling them throughout post-disaster, pre-disaster, so that they are able to better respond in the future when we talk about humanitarian crisis.